I am so delighted that each one of these individuals was willing to join us for this panel today. When I extended the invitation, I had no idea that we'd have such a great turnout. Each one of these people, as I'm sure all of you know, are very, very busy people. And the other thing I want to say is that prior to me taking this job, I talked to each one of these individuals about this job, and every one of them to a person said, what you're going to find at the Department of Transportation is probably the most dedicated group of career professionals anywhere in government. Now, the President last night announced that he wanted to use part of the money that had been used and is being used in Iraq to fund the transportation bill and also pay down the deficit. So I hope that we can work with Congress this year, and I know all of you hope that too, that we can get a surface transportation bill, which we've gone 3 years beyond the last one. And I served in Congress for 14 years, and I've experienced this dilemma of transportation bills languishing for debate, but I think our dilemma has been really trying to find the resources to do all the things that everybody in this room knows we need to do in transportation.
Government actually made a difference and helped people. When I was sent down to South Florida to respond to Hurricane Andrew. Remember, Hurricane Andrew hit Florida and Louisiana, so there were two venues of significant stress that we had to address, and it crossed lots of bureaucratic lines. One of the more significant internal debates inside the executive branch was the role of the military, and Secretary of Defense Dick Cheney and I had some pretty heated conversations, as I did with the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Colin Powell, and but eventually the military did play a very, very significant role in helping to allow people to have a place to stay in the camp that they set up, but also in helping to clean up the debris.
The big thing on our plate was Pan Am 103, the tragic death over Lockerbie. That was, I think, the first year, while there's some other things we talk about, that was the compelling thing that I really focused on from a what can we do about it, and worked with the families. So we formed the Pan Am 103 Commission. We put a number of programs in place to protect safety in the air, and from international flights in particular, and I think we made great progress in putting a lot of things in step. And then, of course, after 9/11, we put a lot of the same steps in place in the United States. So I had Pan Am 103 kind of on my plate every day, every week. You don't get involved in something like that without being personally involved with the families and the survivors.
The major issue that we had, nurture the deregulation on the economic side of all the major modes. That had occurred in the 1978 to 1980 period. And we did buses, I think, in '82. And we had one major legislative exercise because Congress, when it passed the '78 Airline Deregulation Act, said that at the end of '84, the CAB is to be sunset, but that's all the '78 bill said. The CAB will go out of business on December 31st, 1984. And we spread the residual functions and the residual 300 employees out among several offices in DOT, mostly in the Office of the Secretary complex. That had an interesting and I would say negative side effect, and we sort of knew this was going to happen. But Sam lived with this, and Andy lived with it, certainly, and that is that Congress, when we did that, didn't give us more money or more FTEs, employment slots. So what we in effect did was overload the policy office, overload the general counsel's office, overload the government affairs office with these folks. And for years, my successors, and in my area as well, I mean, I lived with it, you couldn't hire anybody new.
We had some delays in reauthorization, especially the reauthorization of Amtrak legislation in particular. But the FAA bill, surface transportation with T21 that ultimately was passed. But I think the key challenge was just making the department a part of, an integral part of the overall administration effort to get the economy moving, to invest in ways that would create jobs, and that would help the business that helps business do business, meaning transportation, really be a central player in that process. I'm pleased that at the end of the day, we were successful in that regard, able to bring on, on board record level investment in transportation, able to move along not only Amtrak, but to get a seller service going and to lay out a vision for high-speed rail.
The major challenge I had was bringing together 90,000 people who came from a number of different areas within the federal government, trying to create one cohesive group. And to get 90,000 people operating at the same level, going toward the same goal, speaking the same language, was somewhat of a challenge, particularly since there were vast differences in the attitudes of the various organizations and people who became a part of the department. For example, the Federal Aviation Administration had been the Federal Aviation Agency and an independent agency, and they enjoyed their independence.